All right, everybody. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, man. My voice is cracking. I'm still kind of sick a little bit. I was 2 weeks ago. Cindy, you kind of remember
Oh
this.
yeah.
I was not feeling the best. I had to tap out of a couple different calls. Actually, rescheduled a webinar from last week Monday to this week Monday. Actually, Cindy, you and I did that webinar together. We absolutely killed it. I was really stoked about that. So we are here today. My name's Chris Weiser, here with our head sales trainer here at Seven Figure MSP. That is the trusty, beautiful Cindy Phillips. How you doing, Cindy?
Hey, I'm doing great. And I don't go anywhere without my baseball. So there you go.
What?
Here's the baseball, man. Time to
Oh,
run
okay.
the play. Time to run the play, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that whole lot. I gotta move my screen around because I'm looking at the picture here. And what happens, guys, I don't know how much you guys go live and do video or any of this stuff. If you kind of catch yourself looking at the other person versus looking at the iris on the camera. So I move my video actually at home. Cindy, I don't know if you know this, I'm at the office right now, but at home, my camera's in the middle, in between. I have my two screens kind of spread and I have my camera right in the middle. So I can basically look at you
Nice.
and then not have to worry about it. So anyway, just so you guys know, this is an every single week we're here training session. That's what our goal is to do. And for you guys that are MSP owners, this one is especially relevant for you. The last 4 weeks, I was with Lindsay Badillo, our head marketing coach, and we did our cold prospecting playbook. Well, the next 4 weeks, you got me and Cindy Phillips, who's our head sales trainer, and we are going to talk about how to sell your MSP services. Today, we're going to talk about the cybersecurity risk assessment. And I think I just did the everyone tag. This one was me, guys, for the record. I just did the everyone tag out on our Facebook group. I get people swearing at me and telling F you and all this other stuff. That's fine. But this is really, really relevant. Cindy and I are not here to sell you anything today. We are here to teach you. And one of the battles that we see all the time is MSPs are so worried around the world right now. How do I sell cybersecurity? How do I up my margins? How do I side note, why do I need to up my margins? Well, you should always be upping your margins every single year. That's thing one. Thing two, you are being forced, and whether you've seen this yet or not, you are going to be forced in the next 3, 6, 12, whatever months, you're going to be forced to add cybersecurity tools. Another side note, Cindy, this just came in from a friend of mine this morning. I went on an entrepreneur cruise about, a month ago?
Yeah.
With all these other digital marketers and entrepreneurs and all this other stuff. And I was a speaker there because we kind of do different stuff than most of that industry. One of the speakers that was also there shot me a message, sent me about 4 voice Facebook messages this morning. And she said, hey, she lives in Atlanta. I was at this big event in Atlanta and I met a woman that is very well connected with the government. And and she came up to me and she knew I was a marketing agency owner, et cetera, et cetera. Well, she is starting and this is something, she just knew that I teach cybersecurity sales training and all this kind of stuff. She said, this lady is starting a brand new cybersecurity wing because she's very connected with Washington, and they are in the background getting ready to mandate small business compliancy laws, which this is more than I even knew because I know a bunch of people in Washington. I checked in and afterwards, she's spot on. There are laws coming down the pike that we're not even aware of yet, that the government, United States government, is getting ready to force down across small businesses because hacking is out of hand.
That's right.
My point with revenue and cash flow and all these other things for the rest of you guys, that stuff's going to it's going to matter. You're going to have to put cybersecurity in. You're going to have to think cybersecurity first. Somebody asked us on our webinar that we did, Cindy, how do I know what tools to add? And our thing, I don't know if you remember that question that came out, I think it was from a gentleman named Brad.
Yeah, I remember Brad.
And that question, I said specifically, you should be looking at what your client needs from the top down, meaning cybersecurity first, and then filling your suite out that way. And one of the things that we are going to walk through here, and I'm going to hand over the reins to Cindy in a minute here. One of the things that we're going to walk through is how do you begin the discussion with your existing clients? How do you begin the discussion with your new prospects the most important way to do this is to diagnose before you subscribe or prescribe. Diagnose before you prescribe. How do we do that? In everything that we've been taught in the past, or that we did in the past, is we kind of walk in, look at the network. Most MSPs analyze based on how many endpoints, how many servers, what the network physically looks like. Now we have to look at it from a cybersecurity point of view. All those endpoints are key, not debating any of that, but how do we know if a hacker is resident? We have no idea. More than likely they are now. It's funny. Another side note, I like to tell stories. I'm a story seller. And I hurt my Achilles a couple of weeks ago playing pickleball. Cindy, I think you knew that.
Oh, God.
So I've been going to physical therapy for my Achilles, and this was my third week in it. Doing pretty well. Actually feels really good today. But was laying there, and I asked my therapist, she's the second in charge. I said, who owns this place? And she's like, oh, that girl right there. She said, why? And I said, well, I'm noticing, I said, I'm not an IT guy anymore, but I'm noticing you have all these personal level, like personal quality, smattering, different types of laptops around. I said, what are you guys doing for your cybersecurity? And the owner flips around and she goes, my husband's an IT guy. He's got it.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Said, well, so what about, are you worried about it? Do you have cybersecurity insurance? She's like, I don't need cybersecurity insurance. And it's what we deal with, right? I get it. Like, this is what you guys are dealing with all the time. And I said, aren't you worried about getting hacked? And she's like, well, that's like, I'm too small to get hacked. And it's the typical repercussions. And by the 30 minutes later, she was looking at me like, that stuff's all real? And I'm like, well, yeah, don't you get fishes? I say, don't you? She's like, well, I get fishes in my Gmail. And I said, you check your Gmail on your medical, and this is a medical office, right? You check your personal Gmail, and your staff can check your personal Gmail. I was like, the chances of you being phished right now and hacked right now, like 90%. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you go talk to your IT guy husband and see how good he is. So I understand the battle you guys are facing, but it's still also, all of this has to start with the right questions. So you have to go into your prospect, not allowing them to dictate the path anymore. You have to say, this is how it's going to be. And Cindy is going to walk you through what we do at Seven Figure MSP, how we train our members. This is all totally free today. We want you guys educated. We want you smart about it. If you need help, that's when you reach out. We're an accelerant. But otherwise, take some of this and implement it on your own. Our goal is to give you as much knowledge as we can. And if you guys got comments, put comments in Facebook chat. We're on 4 channels on Facebook, including our 3 large groups on Facebook and our Seven Figure MSP page. And then also on our LinkedIn page live and our YouTube live right now. So put comments, we can answer. But Cindy, that being said, anything you want to say before I share your screen?
No, I think go ahead and share the screen. You're going to do it. Oh, hey, look at that. Okay, so I am going to tell you. Chris just pressed the button and made my screen come up, which was super cool because he always teases me that I'm not technical, right?
Best salesperson I know. Could close MSP deals all day, but can't turn on a damn laptop. That's Cindy.
So here's the thing. What I'm going to take you on a tour of today is how our sales process works, right? And then I'm going to give you some questions that you're going to want to write down because it turns out that how we open the conversation with a prospect or with a client makes all the difference in the world. And I'm also going to share with you why it matters. It really matters how you approach your clients and how you think of what you're doing. Okay. So let's see. Do I press the button to go next or you press it?
You hit your slides, just like
normal. Just like normal.
You got a slide deck in front of you. Just press those.
Got it. Okay, here we go. All right. So a little bit about us.
Hey guys, just for the record, I'm not joking. Cindy can barely turn on a laptop.
Yeah, exactly. I can barely turn on a laptop. Thank you, friend. You're the only person I know who's turned that into an asset for me. Woohoo! All right. So a little bit about us. You guys
speak to me later.
Yeah, you know we're a coaching program, right? We help people. We help MSPs. What you might not know is that I've been working with Chris for over 3 years now. I'm going to shake your hand, Chris, man. Best 3 years of my life. And the reason is because people are making real and material changes in their business. And one of the things that's a big key element of our program is every month we've got a monthly webinar, and then we've got sessions like these where we basically open the kimono and show you exactly how we do it. And you can do it yourself, or you can come to us if you need a little help. But today, what I'm going to be showing you today is how we do things. And we focus on teaching you skills that are going to keep your business profitable from here on out. So you've met Chris. Now you're meeting me. I don't think I've been on Facebook Live in months. So it's great to see everybody. You were probably with Lindsay Badillo for the last 4 weeks.
Mhm.
And I'm sure soon you're going to be meeting Ryan O'Hara, who definitely is technical, right? He runs an MSP today. And our team here, we're all dedicated to your success. So we focus on teaching you the skills that are going to make the difference. And I'll just tell you, I love baseball. I really love baseball. I got this baseball at CompTIA in 2015 at
I
Wrigley
was
Stadium.
there. You were really there?
And I took batting practice, Chris, and
So
I've
did
never
I.
told you
Yeah,
the
I
story,
didn't
but
even know
I
you were.
went
That's crazy. I didn't know we were both in the building for that.
3 for 3. Now, I did not hit the ball as far as Scotty Barlow did because he was crushing it off the wall. But
I watched who was the guy that owned Connect with you? Brady. Brady was pounding them out of the freaking park. Like he was unbelievable like that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
it
pull
was
up a picture from that.
the super cool thing about I got pictures from that night too. The super cool thing about that was that I'm a St. Louis Cardinal fan. So every time I walked over to the Cubs mascot, I'd say, "Go Cardinals." Anyway, so the deal is I think about sales like baseball, right? And I think about how do you break down things so when you get in the batter's box, you can be successful.
Look at that.
So that's the approach I used when I put this set of 4 workshops. We're going to be together once a week, every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks, talking about how to hit the ball, how to actually close deals. And so the goal here is to get you reinvigorated, to get you crushing sales, to help you build a sales machine. That's the goal. So here's our agenda for the next 4 weeks. So first up, we're going to talk about how not to let your network assessment become a fumble and how the cybersecurity risk assessment will help you score big. Now, I want to be very clear about this. I used to be a huge fan of network assessments, but things have changed. And because things have changed, I'm going to show you today how to leverage the natural change that's in the marketplace and turn it to your advantage. It's very rare when what you do lines up with a market trend. And that's what's going on today in the IT support space because cyber attacks are up so much. Next week, I'm going to help you learn how to turn on your prospect's risk light bulb. Have you ever tried to sell something to someone who's not listening to you? I'm sure you have. So, where the conversation starts in that first time appointment sort of lays the path for how to keep your prospect or your client engaged with you every time you call them or leave a voicemail, whatever it is you're doing to engage them. We've really got to get them from the very first moment focused right here with you, right here, got my eyes on you, so they know why they're coming to these calls. So that's week 2. That's next week. Then in week 3, we're going to unlock the power of authentic conversations and show you how to create winning deals because objections, sales objections are a way of life. Okay? In every conversation we have with people, there are objections, there are questions. They're natural, they're normal. And how you handle those questions makes all the difference in what your results are. So in week 3, we're going to be handling real world objections that come from our coaching practice. So one of the advantages I have, and actually it's probably the only reason I'm really a chief sales trainer, is you would not believe the hundreds of people that I talk to and have talked to about how to actually run this play. And so I've got all their objections categorized. We know what people say and when they say it and why they say it. And the funny thing is when you dig down into the why people say what they do, conversations start to turn when you understand that. And that's what we'll be talking about in week 3. And then in week 4, we're going to talk about how to make your business the business you really want. We're going to talk how to scale your business with one stack. Now, in the time that I've been working with Chris, I've worked with business owners that have break-fix businesses, and like what do you call it? A monthly recurring revenue managed service practice, that have a DevOps practice, that have, there's all different kinds of ways you can make money, right? And here's what happens when you get into the MSP space. Maybe at some point in time, you were taught good, better, best. Let's land and expand. Let's sell a basic
There's
service.
still a lot of that out there, to where people are saying, should I use silver, gold, platinum, or your good, better, best, or should I start at the bottom and go up? That just so you
Yeah.
know that. I don't know how much you see it, but it's out there.
That was a whole land and expand model. Okay. And that's a model I was very familiar with from the software world, right? I mean, that was the whole idea. Let's get people in. I used to joke that software products, version 1 held a place in the market. Version 2 did 10% of the functionality. Version 3 fixed the UI problems, and version 4 fixed the production problems, right? The performance problems. And you didn't have a real product until you were on version 4, right?
Yeah.
Well, people took that same concept into the MSP space, and they said, hey, let's start small and let's incrementally build up. And there's a reason why that doesn't work today. And that's what we're going to explore in week number 4. We're going to explore that. And we're also going to explore one other thing. There are people on this call, people that are listening to me right now, that think they have done everything possible for their clients. And you're sitting back going, hey, Cindy, I have got this huge stack of stuff and my margins aren't great, but I can't in good conscience go back to my client and raise the price when I'm already doing everything that needs to be done. And what I'll say to you is this: there is hope. There's a different way of slicing the pie, of looking at the situation where you can bring something else in and refocus the mind of your client and help them understand that this incremental component that you're adding is going to make all the difference. And then you can drive your price to where you want your price to be. So that's the 4-week agenda. So, you're out there, you're listening. Hope to get a thumbs up here that's like making sense. If you want to light up a Facebook chat and say, hey, I'm excited about learning what I can do in my own business for myself to improve my sales batting average, then let me know that, right?
Yeah. And note, guys that are watching with us, if you put a comment under the video, wherever you're watching live, we should be able to see it here and it should come up. So some might not. I don't know. It's hard to say, but we'll do our best to answer if you're answering live, and then we'll come back and watch on the recordings. And every platform that this is being streamed in right now, it will stay right there. So Facebook, wherever you're watching it, it's there. Somebody just put a testing comment in. I see that. And note, it says above the video that you have to authenticate with StreamYard in order for your name to show up. So do that. Otherwise, here's what it shows up like. It'll just show up Facebook user testing. That's what we see.
And
so
we don't know who you are.
There's one from Juan Lopez Lorenzana. So you can see there's an example. Always exciting. So that's on YouTube. That one was. So that's cool. And then the first one is here from Facebook. So we can see YouTube, Facebook. So there you go, Cindy. I know I did that mostly to explain it for Cindy, just for the record.
Yeah, exactly. Because Cindy's looking at her slides, and you want Cindy looking at her slides, because when she does that, she stays on point, right? So
100%.
Here's the way our sales playbook works. Okay. So I'm also a huge believer in keeping things simple. So right now, I want you to think about your sales process. And if you're not in a coaching program, you might have a sales process that you're like, yeah, I got a sales process. Yeah, I've got one. But can you describe it simply? So let me share with you how simple our process is. Number 1, go on a first-time appointment. Number 2, have a deeper conversation. We call that a discovery call. Ask some meaningful questions. At the end of that second call, close for a piece of business. That piece of business you close for is a cybersecurity risk assessment. So you're going to put an hour and 15 minutes into a prospect before you ask them for money. Now, I want you to think about that for just a minute. And I want you to ask yourself, and be truthful. God bless you. Be truthful. How many times do you talk to people, and how much time do you put into a prospect before you ask for the first little taste of money? How much education do you do before you ask for the first little taste of money? Before you know whether or not they respect what you do? right? So that's part of the reason our sales process is so simple, right? First time appointment, that's like a coffee date. Discovery call, that's like going for a walk around the park and talking about what's important to you. And at the end of that, you're going to ask them if managing their risk is important to them. And you're going to ask them if they would like to know whether or not a hacker is inside their business. And you're going to tell them that typically at this point in time, we do a cybersecurity risk assessment because it helps us understand where your security gaps are. And only then can we recommend what you should do. So you run off, you do the cybersecurity risk assessment, and you come back and you share the results of a professional consulting engagement. You share those results, and at that point in time, you ask a very important question, which is this: what do you want to do about it? Right? I mean, how hard is it to ask that question? Not hard at all. But look at what we do when we ask, what do you want to do about it? How would you like to manage your risk? Who is responsible for making the choice? Certainly not you as the MSP. No, the business owner is responsible for making the choice. And here is a key differentiator in our sales process. We don't talk about how we're going to solve the problem until we know for a fact that we are talking to someone who wants our help. Have you ever tried to help someone that doesn't want your help? It's a bad feeling all the way around, and it usually doesn't work well for anybody.
Hey,
So when
Cindy,
you have
really
yeah,
quick on
go
that.
ahead.
One thing I want you guys also to realize is that we are in a dramatically different place in this industry than we've ever been. We talk about during our webinars, we talk about during our client onboarding that it's the best time ever in this industry. And it's specifically because we're finally in a place where the MSP client needs us. They're actually starting to be told by outside influencers that, and when I say influencers, it's not internet influencers, it's the insurance company, it's their partners, their vendors. Other firms are saying, do you have your cybersecurity stuff in order? And it's really important that you're having these discussions before that happens. And I know that you've never done business this way. Most MSPs have never done stuff the way that we're talking about. We talk a lot in my big Facebook. Our entire brand, we talk about the $300 per seat thing and how you can do it. It's the whole way to do this is to start these engagements and to have these discussions before it becomes a topic, and it positions yourself as the expert, and it's laying the groundwork for you drawing the line in the sand of cybersecurity and liability. Really important things to think about. Cindy, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no problem. So the thing is, this model is very, very simple. Okay, but let me give you another analogy. So is hitting a baseball. Hitting a baseball is really simple, but not everybody can do it because number one, you have to practice. Number two, you do have to have some form. You have to know what you're going to do. Same way with hitting a golf ball, right? You have to address the ball. You have to have a process that you follow every time you get up at bat or every time you walk up to the ball, whatever it is you're doing. And Chris and I love sports analogies because in sports, you play like you practice. And it's the same way in sales. If you don't get very many at bats, then you choke up a little bit, right? So that's why it was so important for you guys to go through the sessions with Lindsay and talk about how to generate new leads so that every time you get a first time appointment, you know it's not your only one. And it's certainly not your last one. So when we get into actually saying why is this cybersecurity risk assessment so important, the first thing we have to do, step one, is we have to leave the past behind. So when you think about your sales process, you may or may not have been using network assessments, but a lot of people do. So why is it so important to change how you engage your clients? Why is it so important to look at network assessments? So, quick question for everybody that's listening right now. Have you done free network assessments? Most people have. You
Most
can
have,
even see
including myself. I did them also, and it was a way to try and, I don't want to say sneak our way in, but it was a way to provide some type of value because we didn't have that smoking gun, and even the content of those were mediocre at best. And it's not because we didn't do a good job. It's just there wasn't a lot that we had to show the client that pushed them over the edge.
Getting a free network assessment is a lot like getting the free sample at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's just there's not enough there. And so that's why I asked the question, how did it work for you? Because if you're doing free network assessments and it didn't work for you, then you might be tempted to take a broad brush and say assessments don't work, right? I mean, that would be a pretty short leap in logic, right? If you've done free network assessments, if they didn't work that well for you. But the big twist here is a network assessment does not tell the client anything about their risk, right? Network assessments don't give you the risk picture. What they do is they give you a lot of wonderful details, maybe even a 500-page report, kill a couple of trees, but nobody reads it, nobody focuses on it, and nobody knows what to do with it. And now I'm going to say, okay, well, that's a problem. Well, you know what? I'm using a different tool, right? And instead of having a 500-page report, I got some really nice icons here that are red, yellow, and green. Same point, though. How much of the picture are you really looking at? Are you just focused on the things that only the IT person cares about? So what happens when you do a more comprehensive diagnosis? What happens? You change the game. That's what happens. So you change the game when you leave it behind. And one of the things that MSP owners have been classically weak at is building commitment inside the company for what needs to be done. So were network assessments easy to do? Usually, right? Pretty easy. Walk around, plug stuff in, right? Pretty easy to do. Send a junior tech out, no problem. Did the clients really care about the results?
Almost
Maybe not
never.
so much,
Really, almost
right?
never. We actually had, Cindy, we pretty much had to print out the full book, and it was like a
Right.
half a ream of paper, put it in a binder
Exactly.
and flop it down on the table, that thud factor thing to eat.
Yeah.
And even then it was like not anybody was going through it. It just seems like, oh, you got a lot of stuff. And then we'd show some, we'd show some stats and we'd show some network health and some other things. But ultimately there was no consequences other than maybe a slowdown. Okay, we haven't seen the biggest thing that we could find in those scenarios that we could show the client that they'd care about was your backups haven't run in 30 days, or your
Right.
hard drives are
Exactly.
full and they're going to shut down, or your databases haven't been properly cleaned, etc. I don't remember the technical term. I'm out of tech for like 8 years now.
Right.
So
But here's the point, right? Here's the point. The network assessments were easy to do. Nobody cared about them, but they were really easy to do, right? And if you ask the question, who was involved in the work? It wasn't anybody who it was involved in the decision, was it? When you did a network assessment, you sent the tech out, they ran around, they did a bunch of stuff, they brought back results, and then you went to a meeting with the executives. But were the executives or the owners of the business involved in any way, shape, and form of understanding their risk while you were figuring out what was going on with their systems? No. They were completely disengaged. That's a big key. I want you to think about that. How committed are people to doing things when they've been disengaged in the process up until the time you ask them for money, right? Were you able to build commitment? And I assert that no, you weren't. The way most people did network assessments, they were not able to build commitment inside the prospect firm for them to recognize that they needed better technology, right? So it's so important to build commitment because when you do, when the decision makers are involved in the assessment process, you discover what they think, what they value, and furthermore, much more deeply, you're going to find out what they're like to work with. So quick question. How many of you have had customers from hell?
Everybody has.
People that don't value tech and don't value you and try to tell you how to do your job. How do you screen those people out? One of the things I want to challenge you to think about is that when you leave the past behind, you can leave the clients behind that don't like you and you can replace them. You can upgrade your book of business. What would that feel like to upgrade your book of business with people who realized you were there operating on their behalf to help them achieve what they want to accomplish? Who can run a business without tech today? Nobody,
Yeah,
right?
cannot.
So we've got to really leave the past behind, right? So what network assessments focused on were the things that IT people cared about. And MSPs have been doing network assessments for a long time. Okay. A
I
long
will
time.
say, Cindy, there's probably, I'd be willing to bet 50+% of MSPs that are active right now still don't do them at all. It's probably higher than that, but they walk in and look at the network. Their version of a network assessment is they look at what's out there endpoint wise and they drop, either they give a quote immediately or they're in a scenario where they formulate their quote based on that and they come back and present it, or maybe they go back. Actually, this happens a lot too, where they go back and they email the quote, right? And it
Oh,
becomes
yeah. Right.
specifically a commoditized deal. So please understand
Right.
how important those things are, guys.
So free assessments, what do they mean to people? Right. Well, they mean about as much as the free samples at the grocery store. They don't mean anything to the client. But my question for you is, what does a free assessment mean to you? When you do a free assessment for a client, how invested are you in the relationship? I mean, are there things that you do that just let you shoot your shot, right? Oh, I'm going to go talk to somebody. I'm going to ask how many locations, how many endpoints, and then I'm just going to shoot you a price because I'm so good at what I do. I don't need to see your business. I don't need to know anything about you. I'm just going to shoot you a price, right? What kind of process is that? It's not
Well,
one
it's
I
not a
want to
process
follow.
at all in reality. It's just, it's
The,
literally
the,
just,
the batting average is too low on
yeah,
that, right?
yeah, yeah.
So network assessments were great for their time, but things have changed. Okay. Now, when things have changed, you're going to have to do something better. You're going to have to do cybersecurity risk assessments because it makes a big difference. When you do these things, you're certainly not going to want to do them for free. So I want you to imagine this. You've had your first time appointment, you've had your discovery call, and now you're going to ask for the client for money. Big time. We don't work for free. We're going to ask for money. So, what's your biggest concern about doing a cybersecurity risk assessment? If you're not doing it right now, what is your biggest concern about doing that? And Chris, are we getting any action in the chat or in the comments? Is anybody
Awesome,
going to share?
decent stuff, but I'll bring up some things as we go here. But I
Okay.
think as you get a question with this, so guys, as you're watching this, we're going to see Cindy on Facebook here or on our stream. We'll see a little bit more delay than we do on Zoom, just so you know that.
Okay.
So stuff
Cool.
will come in here. But for everybody that's watching with us, think about this and put your concern in the comments below. What is your biggest concern about doing what we call the CSRA or Cybersecurity Risk Assessment? I know here's one thing that I see as our probably the biggest concern. I think there's two actually. One, I don't know what to do, that top to
Right.
bottom. And then two, I see a lot of, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the
That's
tech
the one.
staff and I don't have the time. That's the two biggest objections that I see from MSPs.
That's the one that I hear a lot when we have new members that enroll in our program. People, I was just on a call this morning with someone who said, my two techs are full out. I haven't even told them I've enrolled in the program yet. I don't know how I'm going to approach them, right? Because this is a new process we have to run. So that is sometimes one of the biggest things. It's all internal obstacles, right? Internal obstacles to facing someone. But now let's turn our attention, and I just want to ask for your indulgence for a minute to not talk about the tools yet, because what we want to do first is capture the imagination of the prospect. We need to get the prospect wanting a cybersecurity risk assessment and nodding their head that this is the next logical step in our relationship after a first time appointment and after a discovery call Of course, it's logical that I would pay for a cybersecurity risk assessment. So, how do we change that conversation? And the way we change that conversation is we change our questions. So, for everybody who's like thinking maybe I should take notes, this is where I would definitely take some notes. We're going to change the questions. We've got to focus the sales process on the business risk. Okay. And how do you get a business owner to think about risk? What are business owners normally thinking about? They're thinking about how they make their money. They're thinking about what they have to do to keep all the plates spinning, all the wheels turning, and make their money. So, what is the single largest risk a business owner faces? It's a revenue disruption. If you want to send a business owner to really thinking about things, you just ask them what would happen if you couldn't book revenue for 20 days. Have you ever asked anybody that question? What would happen if you couldn't book revenue for 10 days? What would happen if you couldn't take orders on the biggest weekend of your year? Right? There's always a point in time where a revenue disruption is going to be a mortal wound to a business. And what are cyber attacks more than anything? Revenue disruption. So when you change your questions, you can expose the gap in their thinking, because right now everybody thinks they're safe, right? Just like the physical therapy business owner that Chris talked to earlier this week. They think they're safe because their husband's a nerd, right? So here's a power question for you. Do you have a hacker inside your business? Is there a hacker resident inside your network? How would you know? When was the last time you checked? Right? If I come along and ask you if you have a hacker inside your business, your head ought to be on a swivel when I ask that question. And then when I follow up with how would you know? When was the last time you checked? Right? Okay, now I've definitely exposed a gap. And what are they going to come back with first? They're going to say, I'm too small. A hacker is not going to mess with me. And the truth is, you're not too small to get hacked. You're too small to be in the newspaper. You're too small to report it to the FBI. You're too small to report it to your insurance company because you don't have insurance. You're too small to tell your golf buddies because you're embarrassed that it ever happened. Right? That's why people think this stuff isn't going on, but it is. It's like a dirty, nasty little secret that people
Hey,
are getting
Cindy,
hacked.
a side note on
Yeah.
this related to the physical therapy per se. If you guys are just tuning in, I went to a physical therapist yesterday, and they told me, like, we were just talking about cybersecurity because I saw a smattering of random computers around the office, and the owner was very dismissive of any type of cybersecurity talk, and I just was trying to see where she was at, kind of sitting in my guy's shoes at times. And I said, do you mind telling me how much money is in your payroll account? She said, how did you know I have a payroll account? I said, well, most businesses actually have a payroll account. And she said 280,000. So this is I think they have 9 employees, a 9-employee company with $280,000 US sitting in her payroll account. And I said, what if half of that money was gone? Said, this is a play that we run all the time internally, and we tell our guys to do. I said, what if half that money was gone and you relied on insurance and insurance told you it wouldn't exist? And she looked at me like she thought,
Right.
if you guys are watching on camera right now, you can see me like she's rolling her eyes like, whoa, that really could happen. And I said, just so you know, my Chase banker told me they have multiple $600,000 plus bank thefts they're dealing with right now. And she's like, holy cow. So I guarantee you she went home and talked to her husband last night because he's the IT guy. But my point to all of you guys, these are things that they should, and I don't care if it's a 5-person company, they got cash and the hackers are trying to get cash now.
That's exactly right.
Right?
So when we look at all these things and we ask the question, are the hackers trying to penetrate your defenses? When we ask these kinds of questions, we're exposing a gap, right? And that gap is going to make the business owner uncomfortable. It might even make you uncomfortable. And that's the point. Because when you expose the gap, if you drill down even deeper and you expose the why, the business owner will connect the dots on their own and their risk light bulb will go off. So, why would a hacker sit inside your network and observe your business? Why would a hacker do this? Right? Well, you and I probably know the answer, right? They're sitting there because they're waiting to figure out how they can extract the most money out of your business on their first approach. So they're going to sit there and figure out how money flows in your business. And make no mistake, money is the lifeblood of the company. So they're like a vampire sitting inside the network trying to figure out when they're going to put the biggest bite on. And what they're hoping to find is they're hoping to find something going on in your business that is a repeatable transfer of money or a one-time transfer of money that they can hijack. And why are they willing to wait? What are they waiting to do? They're waiting to strike when it's most advantageous for them. And they're not afraid to sit in the network and wait because they know nobody's looking for them. And what makes it worthwhile is they're running a play as well. And it's like a smash and grab, right? Imagine if you were inside a jewelry store and you could sit inside and wait for them to bring out and fill up all the trays and put all the diamonds out there. And well, yeah, you're going to wait until they put all that stuff out there so you can smash and grab it all. So it's incumbent upon you to expose this gap, to expose the why. And then you got to do exactly what Chris just talked about with the physical therapy business owner. You got to raise the stakes. And when you raise the stakes, you got to look at things a little bit differently. What happens if the three most important business relationships for your company are compromised? So I want you to think about a business as being in a supply chain. Three most important suppliers, three most important sales consumers, right? Of whatever the business is building, making, or doing. What happens when the three most important relationships are compromised? What happens if 10% of your annual revenue is stolen? What happens if key suppliers are not paid? And we just had a situation that came up this week with a client who found out that they had been hacked because they were 2 weeks in arrears with their number one supplier because there had been a business email compromise.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Business email compromise, $1.4 million out the door, went to the wrong bank account. Oh, let's call it the wrong bank account. Look at our language we're using. No, that stuff didn't go to the wrong bank account. A criminal stole $1.4 million, right? And the business owner didn't know it happened until the supplier called up and said, are you guys having problems? We didn't get our payment. We're going to have to cut you off in 2 weeks if you don't get your account up to date. What are you talking about, right? So this is how we raise the stakes. We ask these questions. We don't ask what happens if your computer's slow. We don't ask technology types of questions. No, we go ask questions like what happens if your payments are hijacked? Do you see the difference? Do you see how we turn our attention? We change the conversation, right? We change how we engage with the client. And have I asked anything technical here? No, I haven't asked anything technical. So, yes, we do have to dive into the technology. So, how do we do that? Step 4, typically at this point in the conversation, if we want to move forward, what we would recommend is a cybersecurity risk assessment for your business. And that will help us answer these questions. Number 1, do the hackers know who you are? Number 2, are the hackers trying to hack you right now? Are the hackers trying to hack you? Wouldn't you like to know that? Number 3, let's talk about your people. Will your people enable and further a cyber attack? And number 4, and this is so important, do your people store passwords that, when compromised, will cost you money? These are the kinds of things we find out when we do a cybersecurity risk assessment. Now, I want you to look at these questions. Can you get the answers to these questions out of a 500-page report? No. You have to think about the problem differently to be able to answer these questions, right? And I'm not going to talk about tools. Well, let me just take a little side note. Can anybody identify where this screenshot came on that's on the back of these slides? I got some little kind of red dots that are kind of in the background. You're looking at a map of the world. Well, we're looking at a screenshot from SaaS Alerts, which helps us answer the question, are the hackers trying to hack you? It also helps us answer the question, are the hackers trying to hack you in the cloud? Right? I mean, but what we're doing here is we're simplifying and we're focusing the language that we use so that we're focused on what business owners really care about, and we're focused on what business owners, what keeps them awake at night. So what we're going to do is
90% of this process, guys, is also making sure that your prospect and your existing client, specifically, I'm going to tell you, actually, your existing client is a huge factor right now, but making sure that they're educated. So when faced with something, go back to the physical therapist that I was talking to yesterday, that they don't dismiss it as not important. And that they say, stop the presses. That is a sign that something weird's going on. Let me call my guy or call whoever, right? Those are important things.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go back and put these questions back up one time. And, if you guys are watching or whatever, screenshot this stuff, because these questions matter. And they're a big key to the success of our members, right? Because this turns people's behavior. So when we get down to executing the cybersecurity risk assessment, you and I both know we're going to do a lot of complicated technical stuff. But we've got to present it to people in a way that they can wrap their arms around it, in a way that it's clear in their mind. So we're going to look at your team. We're going to look at your applications. We're going to look at your network, and we're going to look at your data. And in those 4 areas, we're going to do multiple things, right? We got a project plan for it. We know what we're going to do, but these are the areas we're going to look at. And when we're done, it's thumbs up or thumbs down, baby, for each one of these areas, because if you've got an opening that can be exploited, what's going to happen? Hackers are going to come in. So now let's worry about the tools. Okay. Now let's talk about the tools. You're going to execute everything I've talked about up to this point. You can do with whatever you've got in your shop. Okay. So everything that I've talked about up to this point has all been about how you think and your language and what you want to do. But now we want to do some real work. Okay. So we're going to do some real work, and we're going to execute a cybersecurity risk assessment with your tools. So we're actually tool agnostic. I don't care what tools you use. I really do not care. What I care about is how much time you spend screwing around with your tools and not getting stuff done. So I don't want you to pick tools that you don't understand or that are complicated or that don't work. I want you to pick known good software, and I want you to be able to do 3 cybersecurity risk assessments a week so you can ramp up your webinar machine and build a money engine. Okay, that's what I want for you. So when we look at the team, what are we going to look at? Well, first of all, we're going to look to see if they're out on the dark web, if their emails are out on the dark web. We're going to also look to see if they've had any cybersecurity training. We're going to look to see if they've got any cybersecurity policies. Do the people that work for the business know what acceptable behavior is and what it is not? We're going to fish the living daylights out of them, because that's how we answer the question, will your team enable and further a cyber attack, right? Will they launch a cyber attack, right? We're going to talk to the executive team about their people. We're going to find out if they have a problem with disgruntled employees. We're going to find out if they've had other security problems, not cyber, but other security problems that would lead us to believe that they have what I call morally flexible people working for them. And you guys have all heard about the stuff that goes on the dark web, right? There are people out there advertising for folks, hey, I'll send you a jump drive, just take it to work and plug it in. We'll send you 25 grand, right? You know,
I like
that
that
kind
term,
of stuff.
morally flexible.
Yeah, morally flexible. Yeah. And
the problem is it describes me is the issue.
Yeah, the problem with the morally flexible thing, right, is you can test for that. And actually, if you're in our program and you're hiring people, we'll show you how to test for that.
Yeah.
But the thing about morally flexible people is they think they're right and they don't think they're doing something wrong. So you want to know if you've got that inside your shop. Then we're going to look at your applications and we're going to say, hey, your applications that you're using, how tight are they? How porous are they? Can people come in? Can they get through one of your applications, come in and get through everything you've got? Do you have the right people with access to only the right data at only the right time from the proper location? Do you have things locked down in a zero trust kind of world? Probably not, right? So you're going to get screaming F marks on all of that stuff. And you'll probably get D pluses on your applications. And then we're going to get to your network. And if they're a current client, you probably have the network pretty much locked down. That's great, right? But that's insufficient. And the other thing is, how many times have you really looked at their data and asked the question, what is their data worth? And then when you do this, not just the tools you're using, but when you do this and you go through this process, are you getting the executive team and key individual contributors involved in how you actually execute the CSRA? Or are you sending a junior mid-level tech out there to operate like in a vacuum, not talking to anybody? Because we all know the best techs are just a tiny bit people averse, right? And they're just going in and collecting information. No, it's a collaborative process. And when you do it as a collaborative process, it's very different. Now, I want to take a quick minute, and even though I'm not technical, I want to talk about tools. All right. Now, I already told you I don't care what tools you use. Yeah, I know, but I'm on a roll here. So here's the thing on the tool deal. I don't care about what tools you use. What I care about is that you own the tools you're in, right? Now, if you're in our program, there's a bunch of tools that we give you a tasting of, right? And if you're tight on money, you can install them on 5 clients and pull them out. Install, pull them out. Install, pull them out. You can script that stuff. You can make it easy. You can make it affordable for you to do it. There's no reason not to do a CSRA. And as your salesman,
we also have
that's the
CSRA
important
as a
part.
service now too. So we actually, one of the things that
Exactly.
we've done in our program is we have built a cybersecurity risk assessment as a service offering as part of what you do. And the whole point of that is just to help you guys on time. Now, one thing I want to say that I've seen a lot of lately, Cindy's mentioning tools with an S on the end. I almost said a Z. Tools, not one tool. There is multiple tools that you have to use, and there's a reason why you run multiple tools. You heard her mention fake phishing. You heard her mention dark web. You heard her mention looking at plain text passwords in browsers. Also looking at the network, looking at vulnerabilities, looking at all of those pieces are really critical because it's exposing multiple threat vectors. It's ramping up, ratcheting up, whatever you want to say, their threat level and their risk level. Not just one tool that gives you, hey, we could hack you. I don't care what tools you use, but don't just assume you can use one quick and easy tool and walk out the door. Your job during the CSRA process is to gather as much stuff that the hackers might want access to. What is that? It depends. A lot of variables there. You need multiple tools. You want to see all these different things like Cindy has allocated here, team applications, network data, all these different factors. We have to analyze the threat vectors across multiple and present that to the prospect to turn on what we call their risk light bulb. We want the prospect across the table to have that oh shit moment. Oh,
And the other thing we want them to have, and I want this to be very clear, I want them to see you as a competent organization. And I want you to find prospects and clients that are equally competent, because it's very, very important when you go through the CSRA process that you're engaging their executive team and their key individual contributors so that these folks get to know you and your team so you can bond together. And how many other people are actually doing that? Not
yeah.
very many. And so when you take the time to actually have built a working relationship with someone, you're going to learn so much more about them. And why is this so important for you as an MSP? Because everybody's going to have a bad day. And you want to know what kind of people are you dealing with when things go wrong. Okay? Because they will, right? We can no longer say that we can keep people from getting hacked. All we can do is keep people as safe as possible and help them recover as quickly as possible. But that means you've got to have clients that you can rely upon to work the problem when the problem happens. So, in terms of tools that we use, just a quick list of some of the tools, and Chris is going to help me out after I give this list. But we rely upon Lifecycle Insights, Breach Secure Now, Actifile, Nodeware. Let's see, who else do we rely upon?
Connect Secure, CyberCNS, they're the same. Also, we have, now you're messing with my head. We have Augment, SaaS Alerts. And these are changing all the time. We also partner with Gradient on some things, and we just literally launched a new deal. Well, it hasn't been launched yet, but it got signed today with Policy Source, so they have the right policies. Like all these different tools are part of the stack that we recommend. Again, tool agnostic. Just make sure it's not only one tool.
Exactly. And when you go into this, it's not unusual for people to put 40 hours of work into a CSRA. And that's another reason why we charge for them. Okay? Because when you do this process, you're going to win big because you're not just shooting your shot with like a price, right? So there's a big difference between a network assessment, sending a junior engineer out and not really engaging the client and doing a full up cybersecurity risk assessment. So do you see the difference? Do you see how it's different? That's going to help you win big. Second question I have for you. Do you see how changing the questions and changing the fundamental way we look at the business, what I call the frame of the conversation, how we change that, how that changes our outcomes? Do you see how that's different? Okay. So when I describe the CSRA, I'm hoping that your head was kind of exploding a little bit, going, oh my God, how am I possibly going to do that much work? She just said I could do 3 of them a week, right? Am I going to have to add a head count? No, right? But here's the thing. We can't do this work for free because it's the most important work that we do. It helps us in depth understand your business and what's appropriate for your business. And that's what happens. Now, final step, maybe the most important step, you have to protect your fanny, right? What happens if the client's hacked while you're doing the CSRA? Have you thought about that? It happened. We've had it happen to clients. And you're going to need to stop work and allow whomever is managing the tech to run their incident response protocol. In many cases, the client will ask you to do it because they don't have anyone managing their tech. But before you start this with the cybersecurity risk assessment, you've got to have a statement of work and a limit of liability before starting work. You've also got to have a conversation with your executive sponsors about the possibility that this could happen. So I want to tell you a story. I'm running a small business. I maybe kind of manage the tech. I buy the cheapest stuff I can find. A really smart MSP comes in, talks to me, has this great conversation. I buy in. Yes, I want a CSRA. They start work on Monday morning, and I get hacked Monday at 10 o'clock. I've been running this business for 15 years. Nothing ever happened until I let you in the door. Did you hack me? Did you bring the hackers in? You got to be prepared for that, okay? Because that has happened. And no, of course, the MSP didn't start the attack, but a hacker lying in wait sees that things are about to change. So now they're not waiting for how I can steal the most money from the business. They're like, it's go time, baby. They're bringing in professionals. We got to get what we can get and get out. Make sense? So you got to have that conversation in advance with your executive sponsors. And you need a simple checklist to make sure you always have your paperwork in order. And in our inside our group, we have that, right? So you know what you have to do. So Chris, that pretty much wraps up everything I had planned to talk about today. I just want to kind of thank everybody for coming by and encourage everybody to come back next week because we're going to break down the first time appointment and we're going to break down the questions you need to use in the first time appointment. But I would like to kind of close today with just asking everyone, and we can stop the screen share now. But I really would like to know, what fee would you charge a prospect for this service? So if you've listened to us for the whole hour, you get the idea, you're kind of on board with it. What are you going to charge your your prospects and clients for a cybersecurity risk assessment? And what do you see as your biggest obstacles to making this happen?
Yeah, and Cindy, all this stuff is so relevant, and I know that we have a lot of people watching right now, and I'm super excited about that because this is a different way of doing things. This is one of the baselines of what we do in our 7-figure MSP coaching program. And if you're looking at this and saying, whoa, never thought about that, then you got to go back and reset and look at your MSP. What are you focusing on? Cybersecurity should be your number one discussion point. And I don't care where you are in the world watching this live with us right now or watching on a recording. These are things you're going to be faced with this calendar year. I promise you that. Cindy and I have been talking about this stuff for over 3 years together. We've seen the market pretty much do what we stated it was going to do. I'd say we're about 95% accurate, right, Cindy? Like, we've watched this happen. We've watched the insurance companies come in. And note, guys, one of the, here in the States, we talked about HIPAA, and HIPAA was like your Privacy Protection Act for doctors and medical and all this other stuff. And we all thought as MSPs and IT companies that was going to be something that was going to push doctors to actually care. Well, the problem was there was no police with HIPAA. Still no police with HIPAA. There's nobody running around every medical office and making sure that they're doing things right. Case in point, my physical therapist yesterday that literally has laptops wide, like there was violations galore, etc. Here's the factor with cybersecurity. The insurance companies are accelerating all the adoption, and the hackers are the police. The insurance companies are the enforcers. And when we talk about that, the hackers don't care. They're hitting everybody. They're hitting as many people as they can. They're casting a wide net and waiting for flare guns to go up. Flare gun goes up, boom, they swarm. And then what happens is the insurance companies are starting to enforce because they're done being the bank. They don't want to pay out claims. And now we're in this place where the insurance company is basically saying a cybersecurity claim is denied by default. You have to prove to us you weren't negligent. So rounding all that out, think of where your MSP sits, how negligent or maybe enabling you are. Are you enabling negligence at your client? Something, Cindy and I do this stuff all the time where we're on a couple calls a week together. So we just have this great relationship and rapport back and forth. And it's, when we each laugh at each other, she just did. That's something I've never said before because it just kind of comes out. But if you think about what MSPs are doing, they are enabling your client to be negligent. So not only could your client be, let's say like that physical therapist I was dealing with, let's say they lose $100,000 out of their payroll account and they go into insurance is like, you did all this stuff. Because if insurance is going to do a claim now, they're going to investigate. They're going to have a breach coach. They're going to do forensics. They're going to look at it. They're going to lock down all the evidence. They're going to come talking to you. They're going to talk to all these people. They're going to talk to the EMR vendor. They're going to talk to the IT guy. They're going to talk to the husband. You think in that scenario, he's allowed this to happen. He's my IT. Times have changed. You have to change. You have to do things in a different way. So you have to be the ones that are there, and you have to stand up and say, nope, this is how it's going to be from now on. And Cindy and I are never going to say, walk away from all your existing clients. We're going to say, draw the line in the sand of liability. Which side are you on? Make sure you're in a good spot. Put up a paper wall. We partner with a really good insurance firm in Skyber, which is backed by, that's Art Gross from Breach Secure Now. We partner with those guys. It's backed by Willow Risk Management and a good guy named Tom Wiersbowski. Tom says specifically, you have to put up a paper wall between you and your client. So when they get hacked, breached, compromised, $100,000 stolen, $500,000 stolen, $1.4 million stolen, like Cindy talked about earlier, they can't come back to you and say, it was your fault. You say, look, I talked to you about cybersecurity. I talked to you about having to put things in place. You told me you didn't want to pay for it. It wasn't important. It was overkill. These are all things that we've dealt with inside of our coaching program.
And it's been tested. It's
absolutely been tested. And we've seen this happen in the last 6 months, let alone going back 36 months. And you have to be able to stand up and say that. And Again, don't walk away from clients, but say, I'll still service you, but I'm advising you to do this. I'm advising you to do this. And when you have an incident, here's how we're going to handle it. And here's how we're going to charge you. Okay. So think about all those things. We're going to talk about this a lot more, but it's really important things to think about.
So I know we're up against time, but I gotta answer one thing before we leave. Okay. So there was a little bit of a thing there where I asked everybody, what would you charge for a CSRA? And I've had a chance now that I've shut down my slides to look at the comments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say to the folks that put in numbers of what they would charge, I'm really grateful you put your numbers in.
Here's one.
Now I want to share with you.
So Juan Lorenzano said in my market.
Now I want to share with you what we get for a CSRA. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we get it every week. We charge $150 per person for a CSRA.
With a minimum, with a minimum
of $1,500. Okay.
Yep.
Now, the reason I want to point this out is because there's power in how the conversation is structured so that when you get to the point where you reveal the price, people buy. And one of the biggest things that has to change is you have to see it work so that you'll believe it. But that is what is in fact happening inside our system. And we have many wins every single week with prospects. And we don't charge existing clients because we're raising our standard of care for existing clients, and existing clients already think we're doing stuff. So if we want to have our existing clients understand that things have changed and we do things differently now, we have to open the conversation with the CSRA. But if you run the webinar play that Lindsay taught you last week, when the people raise their hand and say, hey, I want a first-time appointment, and then you do the discovery call and you're now at the point where you're going to ask them for money, please ask them for $1,500 because you can get that as a bare minimum, and you can get much higher than that if the organization is more complex. So I just want to leave that as a final word.
And one other thing that Juan had asked, these are all YouTube questions coming in here. Chris, the stack of tools are included. Yes, we include a baseline stack of tools. They do have minimums. We have various different vendors that have like a client minimum. So like you heard Cindy mention, up to 5 clients or a number of endpoints or number of seats. And they do that, so they get a chance to show you their product, and we include the baseline products with it. So
and they're fully functional.
Fully functional, but capped at endpoints, basically, or capped at number of seats per se, depending on it. It just depends on how their licensing works. So really good things. Okay, Cindy. So we're going to be back here next week. Next week we are going to talk about the FTA, learn how managed service providers can win that first-time appointment. Now, there's questions that I see. I don't really care about time. If you guys got to go, you got to go. I just want to make sure we finish this and talk about it a little bit. A lot of MSPs will say, hey, I just got this brand new lead. I don't know how to handle it. And one of the things that we have our people do in our program, we have you go back to your existing clients first. Use the CSRA, go back to your existing clients first. Farm that book of business you already have and have those discussions with them. So we teach you how to do that from the top down. And we want you learning how to sell, because it's kind of like MSPs and leads is kind of like the dog running after the car. And if you think about what happens in that scenario, like dogs are like, I was taking my dogs on a walk this morning, dogs running after a lady. Like, what are you going to do when you get the lady? They just stand there and look at it.
You do when you catch it. Yeah.
We don't know what to do. So dog catches the car. They don't know what to do with it except bite the tire. So think in the scenario, what are you going to do? You have to have a process. You have to have structure. You have to know what to do. We're going to cover that next week on how to win the first time appointment. So Cindy and I will be back next week, Wednesday, 12:30 Central, same time, same channel. Wherever you're watching now, just watch for the event. I believe next week's event's already posted on StreamYard, which means it's pushed out to all the platforms. So go ahead, register for that, sign up for it. We'll be back. And Cindy, great job today. You are amazing. If you guys need anything from us, would love to help you. Hold on, let me just throw up a couple of banners quick here. We have 2 things that you can look at. Number 1, 7figuremsp.com. You can fill out an application there. You can even request to talk to me. No problem there. Well, you can't talk to Cindy. You got paid to talk to Cindy. Actually, you got paid to talk to me sometimes. That is what it is. Also, we have our – I love it. We have our next live event coming up in May. That'll be May 14th, 15th, 16th in Nashville, Tennessee, downtown. We'll be at the Margaritaville Hotel. Really excited about that one. Haven't been back in Nashville in a while. That is an amazing in-person event. We got some really cool things. In fact, Cindy, you don't even know this because this just got planned out literally today. I'm chatty Cathy today. You're going to have to deal with it. But here's what our pre-day is. We actually, Amanda and I were working on this morning, if I can find it in my Teams chat here. 10 a.m. to 12:30 is going to be your CSRA as a service workshop. Then after, this is a pre-day, so the 14th is a pre-day. Then your pre-day afternoon, 1:30 to 4 p.m., incident response workshop with additional cybersecurity recovery and response focuses. So we're going to talk about insurance. We're going to talk about tabletop exercises. So we got how to run a CSRA, top to bottom, in person and a workshop. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do how to respond to incidents the right way. So some really cool things coming up at our live event. Got some really cool speakers coming too. So I'm stoked about that. Cindy Phillips, any parting words?
Hey, see y'all next week. How about that?
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll see you guys soon. Have a great day. If you need anything, shoot me a DM on Facebook. I'll help you out. I answer every DM personally. We'll guys talk to you soon. Have a great day. Cindy, great job. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.